This episode is brought to you by True Patriot. True Patriot is setting the standard for Patriot lifestyle apparel. 100% made in the USA. At True Patriot, it's more than just great shirts. It's about the mission, supporting our nation's veterans and families. Are you a veteran-based organization, nonprofit, or small business? Let them help you with your fundraising and custom shirt needs. Check out True Patriot today at truepatriot.com. TRUPatriot.com. And now, to the Kensington Corner.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to Kensington Corner. Tom here. Today I have Canice Harte. He's Vice President of Sales and Marketing at AKU Outdoor. Been an outdoor industry executive, 20 years now, 30 years now?
Yeah, it's an amazing. Time goes by that quick. I still feel like I'm one of the younger ones, but yeah, the dates don't lie now.
Yeah, you've been with top tier brands with North Face, Patagonia, Salomon, and then now you're kind of doing the whole entrepreneur thing a little bit.
Yeah, I think, at least for me and, some of my friends, but, having led sales teams, I kind of came up to the sales world and sometimes dabbled in marketing and dabbled in product, but, you start to kind of feel like, hey, I want to do this for myself, or I've got some ideas. And there's a point when a friend of mine reached out to me one day and he says, hey, REI is looking, this is like actually back in 2007 or 2008, the height of the BK scare of water bottles. And he's just like, hey, so REI is looking for more water bottles. You know where we can get some. And of course I'm like, yeah, for so many years in the industry, you probably know some people. So I'm like, yeah, I think I can get us bottles, but why us? Why are they looking for you and I to get them bottles? You would think they can get this a million different places. And
right.
At that time, they really couldn't. And so we sourced bottles for them, and that went well. The funny story is actually we sold bottles and we made a pretty decent chunk of change. I mean, we could have each gotten a couple supercars and rode off into the sunset kind of thing, but we decided to take the money and invest it in a company we created called Waterbox. And I'd say that was the launch of the entrepreneurial thing. I was already looking to do something on my own, and then when this opportunity came about, we just jumped on it.
Yeah, So at this point in time, though, who were you working for at that point in time when the Waterbox thing? Was it just that's kind of how it took you and you had to step away from what you were doing, or was it just encompassed in everything you were doing at that point?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was trying to make a go at consulting, which arguably actually was working really well. I was different, not like the big Anderson consulting firms, but rather within the outdoor industry. Having worked for some of the largest brands that are out there, you also need to work with small brands, and a lot of the brands that are in startup mode, they probably just don't have the resources to pay for all the people and things they would need to gain that experience. So I would take a gig with a company for 3 to 6 months and actually do stuff for them, like hire people or write plans or, make sales calls, like whatever the task was, from that brand. And what was a bit strange for me, and I guess maybe that was truly the first entrepreneurial piece, but I never felt settled in that I didn't know when the next gig was going to come.
Right.
And it seemed to work out. I seemed to go from one job to the next, and sometimes it'll overlap, and had my hourly rate and was doing my thing. But I have to say, I actually really, really enjoyed the work. Like I really like that idea of plugging in with people, and typically they're entrepreneurs, for 3 to 6 months, and then kind of moving on to the next thing. And I was doing that, and I was working with a company called Revel 7, which was making apparel. And back in the day, they got their apparel on MTV, and they were looking to expand it. And then that's when this water bottle thing presented itself. So I had to make a decision, that hard pivot to stop pursuing the consulting piece and pursue starting this water bottle company called Waterbox. And
that worked out pretty well for you then, obviously.
Yeah, we got lucky. The funny thing is sometimes I do firmly believe, you have to set yourself up to get lucky. And then if everything works out well, right, you actually get lucky, but it happens because you set yourself up for it. So it's usually not just on accident that these things happen, but we got lucky in that we had these relationships with, there are a lot of the big retailers around the country from so many years working in the outdoor industry. So I knew who to talk to, and we were asking them like what they needed, what was it they wanted in water bottles, and how could we grow the business, not just take away someone else's. And so we had done all of those things. We had this huge shipment of bottles coming in on a boat of like 300,000 bottles. And it was just like this crazy number based on these orders we had. But at that very moment when the boat is out there bringing the bottles in, Big Water Bottles, who was all the rage, gets busted for having BPA in their bottles. And instantly these big accounts looked at us and said, hey, we're dropping them. We need to fill those orders. Can you do it? And we're like, well, yes, we can. Yeah. And that's what got us kind of started. And that's where this thing really launched.
Were you already pretty heavily entrenched in the ultra marathon community at that point?
No, there's it's kind of a funny backstory to me and ultra running or marathons and things of that nature. I've always been a natural runner. I've always realized I'm okay or thought I was decent at endurance type things. And I'm kind of going back to the military time, like just some of the reason why I think I succeeded in getting some of the places I did was just that endurance, that willingness to like grind something out. And so I had a buddy, so I'm working at the North Face. It was a dream job. This is like my, after school kind of job. And I'm a sales rep and I'm eventually become like a sales manager and move up through the company. But for me, I'm in like my late 20s. It goes into my 30s, but I am just traveling around with all the athletes and we're climbing and skiing and just doing
that's really absolutely fun awesome stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's insanely cool. And I'm selling products that I believe in, right? It's not like you're selling, I don't know, like there's probably nothing wrong with selling aluminum siding, but I wouldn't know anything about it. So I would just sound out of place. But you talk to me about tents and sleeping bags and clothing and materials. And, I just geek out on that stuff. And so it's kind of like my dream job. And so what happens though is a friend of mine, this guy, Topher Gaylord, and Toph runs Western States, which, is a 100-mile race. That's, I think in the world of 100-mile races is probably the most popular. But he is doing this thing, and I have no idea what he's doing. It doesn't really connect with me. I'm very much aware of it because he's a friend, and I could see he's running 10 miles in the morning and 10 miles in the afternoon, trying to fit work in there or longer. And so I sort of filed that away. It stuck in my mind. And if you fast forward a bunch of years, I eventually am in this motorcycle accident. And this is actually the short version of the story, by the way. But what happens is a steel pipe comes off a contractor's truck in front of me when I'm commuting to work, and it hits my right knee at like 55 miles per hour. And so, bam, it just blows that thing apart, and it becomes its own crazy story. But, they took me in. I had to sign the waiver or this release in case I had to amputate my leg. And, obviously they didn't, and they were trying to save it and they were able to. And I got really lucky in the whole thing. But it was pretty serious. And I just remember through that rehab period, I remember like my very first rehab goal that I set for myself was I just wanted to be able to stand and take a shower. Like if I could stand and take a shower on my own, I thought like that would be like that would be the best thing ever. Like I've made it if I get there. Because at that point, I'm sitting on a chair, like in a bathtub with a handheld shower and a giant, bag over my leg. And so, but I do get to a point where I'm talking to the doctor and I say, I want to run Western States. And I've never run an ultra. I've never run anything past a marathon at this point. And he just goes, you're not going to run Western States. Like, kind of like laughing at me. He's like, you're not even going to run 10 miles or a mile. Like, you just got to get that out of your head. I'm like, all right. And I remember, the inner Marine in me, is like, doesn't take being told no very well. So I'm like, all right, I filed that away. And sort of the next event that happens is a friend of my wife's is going to run 100 miles out here in Utah. I'm in Park City, and Gene is going to run the Wasatch 100 and asked if I'll pace or crew her. And then I got a little exposure to ultras. Next thing you know, I signed up for it. So the first ultra run I did was the Wasatch 100. Fast forward a bunch of years, and I actually get myself into Western States, and I do have that moment of crossing the finish line. And I didn't forget what that doctor told me.
Right?
I was definitely channeling that. On that run, I was like, no matter what, if I just finish the thing, I will blow that rehab goal away from back when I was just trying to stand and take a shower. And so it's kind of a special place for me. Ultra running. But additionally, when you live out here in like Park City, or any place where you have access to like the outdoors and stuff. But the mountains are my backyard, and so
Right.
it's great. I like being able to do long distance running because you can just see so much and travel through the mountains.
Yeah, that's why I take to rucking so much. I can ruck for miles on end, and for me it takes me. It doesn't matter. I mean, even when I went by, I took off by myself over Christmas break and went up to Wyoming, and just got lost up in some of the state parks up there, and it was 8 degrees outside. But it's one of those, rucking for me is one of those things. I can do it if it's 140, if it's -40, it doesn't matter. There's just something serene and something beautiful about just just getting lost and not having to worry about anything. I think it takes away a lot of stress for me. But yeah, I mean that's
really that's stress piece. Yeah.
It's funny because one of the episodes we have releasing this upcoming week was with a former Green Beret, Kevin Flight, and he was shot in Afghanistan and ended up having to basically had so much nerve damage that they thought he was going to be paralyzed. And he's running they just rescheduled it to, I think, September, October. But they told him basically like, hey, we don't think you're ever going to walk again. And he's getting ready to run the Boston Marathon in September. And then on top of that, because they just rescheduled it and he's having to start his training for it all over again. I think he told me the New York Marathon's like 2 weeks later. So he's going to run both back to back. And
that's great.
Yeah, and almost just resembles your story so much with the injury is that it's we had a huge discussion on that because when I tore my PCL, he literally me and Jordan are sitting in the room and he's like, hey man, just so you know, you're never going to run again. And I was like, that can't be true. I mean, that's literally exactly what that's exactly what I said. I said that cannot be true. And he was like, no, seriously. And at the time when I got injured, I was probably squatting like 435 for 5, and he was like, and you're probably never going to squat that weight again. And I was like, well, that's also probably not true. Just so we're clear. But I have been told to take it easy on the squats though, and not load the bar up anymore. So I've switched a little bit, actually. I've gone from a lot of heavy bodybuilding, weightlifting, real heavy Olympic size stuff to a lot of body weight exercise here in the last year and a half.
Yeah, well, that's one of the hard parts, I think, when you get hurt sometimes. It's not so much that people don't believe in you, but you've got to find the right people.
Right.
And sometimes it's just like the right doctors and stuff that understand what your rehab goal is, like what you're trying to get back to. Because, for most people, like, if you can get out and play a round of golf, they think you've recovered, right? They're just like, hey, you got it. You're like, no. Like, I like to rock and I like to get up in the mountains, or in my case, I like to run. Or, I spent, what kind of drove me into the outdoor industry was when I got out of the Marine Corps, I wanted to continue climbing, something I learned to do when I was in. And so when I went to school, I got a job in a climbing shop. And that's how I became exposed to the North Face, who I went to work for, and started what became this career. But I couldn't imagine not trying to get back to the thing I loved. It's just trying to get other people to understand what I was trying to rehab to.
Yeah,
was the key piece.
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating, man, because I remember, I'll never forget this, probably forever. I think this would be an image that I burned into my mind, is that they had told me, on a medical professional level, I was going to need 15 to 21 months before I'd be at full strength, because, you had to let the cartilage build back up, see if it actually attached, see what happens. We'll see. And I remember thinking in my head, okay, so I got 6 months. That's what I remember telling myself. And I remembered about 8, maybe even longer. Could have been 10 months. We tried to go bowling, and I went to plant my left leg and still couldn't bowl. I couldn't get into any kind of form that resembled what I was doing prior. And I remember just being so frustrated, so frustrated that in the middle of the round, I looked at Jordan and I was like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I was just so mad at myself, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I don't know, man, I've told this story before. It was literally one day I remember I woke up and I stepped out of bed and my whole leg felt different. And I was like, hold up. Wait a minute. And it was 4 or 5 a.m. And I just went for a run. And I think I ran 10 miles. And I came back and I was like, oh, daddy's back. That's what I remember saying. That's what I remember telling myself. I was like, I'm back. And I've been, if it gets cold out, it cramps on me a little bit. I can kind of feel a little ache and pain ish, but not even a pain, more like a dullness. But I mean, I feel great. And the same kind of story. I remember thinking back to somebody telling me I was 28, and somebody telling me I'll never run again. And I was like, that cannot be true. It just can't, that can't be true.
Yeah. It's hard because every injury is different, and
Yes.
everyone's reality is going to be different. But no matter what their reality is, they have to set their own goals, and they have to like go for it. And other people may not get their goals at first, but you have to get there. It's funny though. I had a moment like that in my recovery. I'm not sure how many surgeries I've had. I forget if it's 4 or 5, but they keep trying to clean the knee up, and I don't have full range of motion, and I pains and all that stuff. But I was really weak, and I really was having trouble doing things. I was working for Solomon, and we were owned by Adidas at the time, living up in Portland, Oregon, and I managed all the footwear and all the apparel and all the bags and packs for Solomon for North America, really for the U.S. sales, but I was a North American product person. But we were up on one of our sort of work trips, which is Whistler skiing, and those work trips were pretty rough. And
Right.
my wife was there with me, and we were skiing, and then she goes, "Hey, I think I'm about to head back in. You want to go in?" And I said, No, I'm going to stay out skiing longer. And the reason she was saying, "Do you want to head back in?" was because my knee would always give out.
Right.
But I got to a point where I'm like, even though they wanted to do more surgery, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to roll with what I got. I'm tired of recovering. I'll address it down the road if that's the case. But it was a very key moment. Like that was the sort of like you stepping out of bed and realizing you can go run. It was me at that moment realizing, oh, I might be back. Like I'm going to go after and try to do more now. And that was a great moment to get to.
Yeah, I know I have to. And I'm I just go, and I remember Jordan telling me, she was like, she would text me and just be like, "Hey, look, just take it easy." And because I remember there were several times across, the progression of what I was doing. Like when I hit 15 months, I thought to myself, well, okay, I should be, because instead of 15 to 21 months, it actually took about 26 before I felt okay. Like there were times, when I first got out and got back here, I was walking like up these flight of stairs at the university one day and literally planted my left leg, and it just gave out. Just completely gave out my whole, and I was like, what the fuck is happening to me right now? And I just remember just like really at that moment, and it's such altering feeling because I have like my own mental health things that I go through, but I've never felt out of place or out of my own comfort. And I just remember being 28, 29, 30, however I was at the time, at school in front of all these 18-year-olds, and I just fell going up the steps, and I'm like, what is happening? What in the last 12 months just happened to my life? I remember thinking that to myself, and I was like, I'm that guy now. I'm that old guy who's just falling up the steps. Can't even make it up. And I took it to heart, man, that I was like not going to let it, really affect me. And my thing is that stories like yours, your knee injury was worse than mine, Kevin's, I talked to these guys, and you see a lot of these guys, there's another guy, I wish I can remember his name. Basically, he had it might have been a grenade accident or a landmine accident. I've seen the picture, and you probably have too. He's like laying in the hospital bed flexing, and he's got glasses on with a green beret on, and he lost both of his lower limbs in his legs. And I saw something not too long ago of him with both prosthetics on, and he's leg pressing. And at that moment,
that's awesome.
it's amazing, but it really makes me, it helps humble my mind, because all the times that I felt sorry for myself going through my recovery, and you look at dudes like that, and I'm like, all right, man, like I had a pretty significant knee injury. I get it. I get it, but damn, dude, I didn't lose both feet, and I'm not, so it helps me when I see other things like that, because it really gives me more confidence, but more of to get rid of the woe is me personality and really get back to what I need to be doing.
Yeah, it's hard. Like sometimes you really got to remind yourself that, like, unfortunate reality is there's always going to be somebody out there who has it worse or harder or done more. There's always someone who is in a much rougher spot than you might be. And it's hard in the moment to have that perspective. But, at the time when you can think that way and you can keep that perspective, it really helps. And that's true in most anything in life. There's always somebody going through something right now. Like take COVID-19 and everybody being hunkered down right now. We have challenges. I have 2 young daughters, an 8-year-old Fiona and a 12-year-old is Penelope. But we've got a decent enough size house. I live in the mountains in Park City, so and then I think about how cramped up we kind of feel at times, and then you think about what, say, New York City is going through right now, and people living in apartments and on top of each other and just getting sick. It's you just got to be thankful for the things you do have and just work with what you got.
Yeah, I saw that the company that you're vice president now, it's an Italian company, and I've worked in the last two summers. I've worked in Italian hospitals, and I feel for a lot of my friends over there because it's the same thing. If you've never been to Italy before, there of course are countrysides, but predominantly most of the population lives stacked on top of each other. And so it's the epicenter of Milan, Rome, people are wondering like, wow, how did it spread this quickly? And it's like, man, they have a really, really older generation population, and they all live like literally on top of each other everywhere. And I feel for them a lot. I've been, really, it's near and dear to me. So I've been keeping up with the Italian stuff a lot. And it's just hard, man. It's hard seeing people go through that. One of my favorite cities in the world where the hospitals that I was in the last 2 years, Genova for over there is, it literally had, I believe, 5 of the 10 oldest people in the world. So
wow.
Yeah.
It's always like in that Mediterranean, like southern region, isn't it? That's always interesting.
Dude, I don't know, man. There's very few places in life where I can tell you that I feel just being there makes me feel more youthful. And Italy's just one of those places. I don't know if it's the sea that's there. I don't know. I don't know if it's just the climate, but it seems like even over there, all the older people have such a vibrant personality to themselves. One of my professors here, Massimo, his mother lives down almost close to Sicily, but like on the Amalfi Coast, basically. And she's in her like 80s, 90s right now. And every morning she gets up and there's a rock that's about 50 meters out into the ocean or to the sea. And she swims out to that rock and sits on it and swims back every morning.
Dude, that's brilliant.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, it's the nice thing about traveling, right? Is like, you meet people and you see them. It's the crazy thing about when you think about geopolitics and everything that goes on in life is that by and large, most everybody out there is really just trying to get along and enjoy their family and are pretty peaceful and loving, and then all craziness breaks out. And like Italy is certainly one of those places you realize the sort of the history of the culture and just they're a little bit. It seems like for a new country like America, we're still upstart and still finding our way. They seem like they realize that their country's been around a lot longer than they were there, and they'll be around a lot longer than they're going to be there, and they sort of chill out a little bit, which is great. I have to say I do worry or feel for like my counterparts. So this company Aku that I work for is based in Montebelluna, Italy, and that's you fly into the Venice airport and you drive like an hour due north, and you're kind of like right at the edge of the Dolomite Mountains,
right?
Which is a pretty flat town when you see it. Like
beautiful.
It's on the road, you wouldn't think much is going on there, but that area, Montebelluna, is the footwear capital of Europe for outdoor products and boots, and
that's
so
pretty wild
like
too,
old
though.
world craftsmanship. Yeah, when you're in there and you're in the factory, and like I was over there. I'm trying to remember the dates, but I was in Venice. Like we finished working and we went down to catch dinner in Venice because our flights are like at 5 a.m. the next morning, and the airport's like right there. So we popped in for food, and then I think it was just a couple days later. It could have been 3 or 4 days, but it was like a couple days later they closed down for the coronavirus. So we kind of just got out of there in time. But luckily, my counterparts are a bit farther north. But obviously, this is their country and their people, and they have family and friends around. And so, I keep checking in and I'm asking how they're doing, and they all seem to be okay. But it's very real right now for them. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm curious about it, and because I feel it's the same way here. It is very real over there, but even the region you were just speaking of, I'm thinking that's up in like Trieste area. I know it's a little further east, but it's being up near the Dolomites and up there, some of those villages that are further north are so interesting to me because they like there's one up there that speaks a language called Ladin, Ladin.
Yeah.
And it's a, you know, a historical protected language in Italy, but only like a certain amount of people speak. It's very small, but that village up there, and I'm trying to think of the name of it right now, and it's gonna.
That's right. Yeah, I probably wouldn't come up with the name either. We may have been standing in the same village.
Yeah, but it's little villages like that.
Yeah, we finished up work in the offices, and then we just drove up in the Dolomites into this area that you're talking about and went skiing for a few days before heading out. So we did do a good job on our boondoggle there. We managed to get more. I think we actually spent more time skiing than we did actually in the office, so that was probably all right.
That's awesome.
But yeah, they would speak like Austrian, they speak Italian, and they speak Latin, and those are the three languages. And you know, that whole area is interesting because when I worked for Solomon, you know, they're based in Annecy, France, and Annecy, France is in the Alps, and it's about 45 minutes south of Chamonix. And much like talking about here in the Dolomites, the borders would move back and forth throughout time. And, you know, it'd be Austria, and then it would be Italy. And then, you know, if you go back far enough, like the Gauls, before they were French and they were the Gauls, that border would move, and Swiss. And it just really, it's an interesting area, like a true melting pot of a lot of different cultures that you meet up with right there in the Alps and Dolomites. Yeah,
it's super interesting. There's so one of the smallest region in Italy is called Val d'Aosta, and it is, I mean, it's literally, you could take it today and give it to France, and there would be, you wouldn't tell a difference. It's just such a mixture of everything. And they have like right like near there's a German Swiss dialect that it's interesting. I really, people who listen to this podcast, I really hope that one day, you know, if you do get the chance to travel, you get to go to places like that and actually check it out, because it'll blow your mind. It's so weird. And for me, it hits home because it reminds me so much of the Appalachians. Like it's no matter what, like however you feel about country people, they speak a whole nother language to themselves as well. So like, going up in the mountain, I took Jordan up there, you know, and obviously you got to realize, like, people in this county up here, we were at this place called Mabry Mill back where I'm from. And, I was like, people have never left here. They've never gone more than 3 miles down the road. Like, this is it. They go to whatever stores here, or they self-provide for themselves, but they've never left this area. And that was just, to her, so mind-blowing. She couldn't, like, you know, the concept of that. And Italy reminds me the same way. There's people up, you know, on that border up in the Dolomites who have never left their village. They've never had a reason to.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible spot. And you know, I sort of like the pace of it too. You know, like, say, skiing for them, you know, like skiing in North America is, well, it's different whoever you are and where you're skiing, right, and your people, I suppose, right? Backcountry, resorts, whatever. But where we are, at least here in Park City, everything's about skiing off piste and sort of like this freedom action vibe you feel, and the way everybody's dressing. And you get up there, and they're really just very tame, groomed ski runs. But it was really all about skiing runs and then going over and getting, you know, a cocktail or a drink or a shot or something, and then like skiing a little bit more, and then stopping and getting some great sliced meat or, you know, whatever they had for food, and more drinks. And then, like, that's really kind of what skiing was like. Yeah, I was just looking up. So like the area that we were in was around Araba, which is in this general area. And then we were skiing. So it's kind of cool, not to like totally nerd out on skiing, but I thought this was interesting. Like, here in the U.S. right now, a ski pass could be $200. It's getting up to $200 now for an all-day lift ticket. And at least that was Vail this winter. I think they hit $225 there.
Wow.
But over there in Italy, like, you would get your ski pass to ski just at a resort. It would be somewhere around, like, I think it was like 14 or maybe it was like $20. But if you wanted to ski through the entire valley, through the entire system of ski resorts, it was only 50 euros, but it was like 50 euros.
Yeah.
So I think I paid 118 euros for 2 days of complete access to everything. And my ski rentals, I took my own boots over, but just to rent some skis and poles, I paid like 28 euros. It was insanely cheap and inexpensive compared to what the experience is like here in the States.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of a different vibe altogether.
Well, yeah. And I mean, also though, Vail, well, I mean, the whole, I'm blanking on the other towns up there right now as well, but that whole thing has become very, very commercialized in the last 20 to 30 years too. It's it's very Loveland. Like even when we go out to the Arise Music Festival, which is right at the Roosevelt, the ending of the Roosevelt National Forest, it has become very commercialized. And it was something that started out as like a small Boulder music festival that was kind of meant to be like the anti, the anti-capitalism kind of thing, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And I don't know. I feel like, for me, if you want like an actual old school, like 70s version of skiing, I tell people all the time, go to New Mexico, man. It's a different world. Go to like Ruidoso and look at I remember I told someone, I said, man, if you would have knocked me out right now and woke me up in downtown Ruidoso, I would have thought I was in Colorado. Dude, that's the other thing I love about America that's so different to me is that from coming, a small town kid, I just did not realize how diverse everything was.
Oh yeah.
Like I could live. Kansas winters kind of bother me a little bit. Kansas summers are pretty good. I love Kansas for what it is. There's just no mountains here. And on top of no mountains, there's no oceans either. And so that really bothers me a lot. But I really think I could live anywhere in the United States. I think you could plant me anywhere and I would make some kind of happiness out of it. And I think.
Well, I was going to say, it's like one of the things that I've enjoyed about a career in sales and working for the outdoor industry. So, traditionally what happens, kind of what I do now, heading up sales and marketing stuff is we hire sales reps and they usually have a geographic area that's theirs that they work, right? So you could be in the Southeast or the Mid-Atlantic or New England or whatever their zone is. But what'll happen though is I'll travel out with them and go visit accounts. And sometimes, I may go meet with a very important account and it's really about like the main thrust of it is the business at hand. Other times though, I may be meeting with some of the specialty retailers and maybe an outdoor event or something. But at this point, I think I've been to every state in the United States, at least no less than 5 times. It's just a question of how many times.
I'm missing one right now.
Yeah, I just love it. Like I love the idea that I've been able to travel around the states, and I like the idea that I've got to travel around the back roads too. That it's not like just flew into whatever the big. I like the cities, but it's not like that's my only experience. I actually really like is seeing as much as I can, and maybe that's sort of my optimistic view of life and sales, but I've actually always enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah, but I think it's what, it's weird because I think it's what you make of it. Now that we're friends, you'll come to see on my social media. I get asked all the time. For some reason, people who follow me on social media, even people like, who are friends back home, I'll get messages like, where are you traveling to this month? And I'm not really traveling anywhere. I drive everywhere. I load up the dogs and I go everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere. So I'm on like a lot of these back roads that people have never been to. Like for New Year's, I got back from the East Coast on Christmas. And for New Year's, Jordan's dad had just moved to LA. So she flew out there. And I was like, man, what am I going to do? Dude, you know what? Let's go to Cheyenne. I haven't been to Cheyenne in 8 years. Let's go see Cheyenne. So I drove up to Cheyenne. I was sitting in Cheyenne, and Cheyenne, just for everyone who's never been there, it's a weird little city. I think you should check it out. And from Cheyenne, I said, man, I really think that I want to. I found this place called Ghost Canyon over near Mount Rushmore. And so I said, I'm going to go stay. I'm going to go run the trails up there for a little bit. So I ran the trails in Wyoming, went and ran the trails in South Dakota, checked out Deadwood, checked out all this stuff. And then I drove back. And I think that you appreciate places a lot more because you see things that you don't normally see. When I was leaving Cheyenne to go to South Dakota, a place that I had never been in my life was Western Nebraska. I had no idea what Western Nebraska looked like.
Right, exactly.
I mean, why would you? When would I ever fly in? If I'm taking a hopper, somewhere, I'm gonna fly in. If I'm going to Salt Lake from here, I fly to Denver and then I go to Salt Lake. I'll never see any of these things. So as I was coming through Western Nebraska, I was like, this is wild. There's no cell service. This is absolutely beautiful. There's all these rock formations out here. And I think that people take for granted, flying's great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love it, but there's something really, really beautiful about packing up the dogs and just being like, man, let's go knock 12 hours out on the road. And then, and even if I don't, I have the freedom to stop wherever I want and post up and just be fine. I let the dogs we go to state parks everywhere and they just run wherever they want. Like, does not, they don't bother anybody. My dogs are great dogs. They, they don't, and, they love it, man. And I was cracking up because I actually put this last one, and we did it was about 6 foot of snow, and it was about 8 degrees. And I have a Siberian Husky and a Pomeranian. And I have a picture of my Pomeranian in front of the trail sign that he just crushed like a 12-mile at like 8 degrees. And he's just rocking it. He's this little like 14-pound dog, and he's just rocking these trails. And I'm like, Jesus. But I have, and they love it, man. And I think people, they just, I don't know, man. I think people get so caught up in their everyday life that they can't take a moment to just realize a lot of the beautiful, just even getting out. It's very cliche to say, hey, get out in nature. I realize that. But at the same time, man, there are so many beautiful things that people just don't see. And then you kind of just, you find yourself, you find out how resourceful you are as a human being when you're able to get out and do these things.
Yeah, it's one of these things where, everybody's kind of grinding out life and finding what their job is and kids and whatever's going on. And sometimes it can be hard just to like lift your head up and try to take that moment of pause. But, obviously I'm a little biased, having spent a lifetime in the outdoor industry and, working for this great footwear company now. But like I've never heard anybody come back from a hike, even if it's just like a little short hike, like a walk. I've never heard anybody come back and go, well, that sucked.
Yeah.
Everybody always comes back and like is happy. And, so even if you just can get out and like, I see that where we live now, in Park City, we obviously have mountains and so people can spread out, but I've never seen this many people walking around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
We're lucky in that way. Not to think that everybody's in that same situation, but you got to like figure out whatever you can do to get out for a little bit of exercise right now and a walk or just see something. Cause it's an interesting time.
You're going to go crazy. Yeah. The COVID-19 thing has been interesting to me because I've mentioned this before, is that I was mind blown, I think, because I was not sure what everyone inside on social media was going to come. I didn't know if there were going to be crazy memes. I was not expecting Tiger King to pop up. But the outpour of home gym exercises it's melted my heart. I was not expecting so many people to take this and say, you know what, man, you're gonna make me fucking stay inside. Well, guess what? I'm going to do these quarantine workouts. I mean, 13 Bar has their own stuff they're throwing out. Alpha Elite's been throwing up stuff, and I know I'm just throwing out people that sponsor me. So, but but even Jeff Nichols has his stuff going up. Softfleet has their stuff going up. There's a ton of things, and I've been watching it all, and something that manifested from a 10 push-up challenge, tag somebody else, has now manifested into like, hey, look at this, sandbag workout I'm throwing up. That's just a full body weight exercise I did in my driveway. Shelton from 13 Bar threw up doing box jumps on the tailgate of your truck. So he put it's just little things like that that I love about, and it's not, I call it American ingenuity, but it's not, it's the world. It's everyone. It's human nature. You are able to adapt and overcome these dire times. And I find it's motivating. It really is. Cause you see all these people now who said, oh, okay, we have to stay inside, or we have to at least not, congregate like we usually do. Okay, well, great. That gives me more time to go outside and walk. That gives me more time to crush these workouts. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, right? Because the entire globe essentially is going through this all at once together, which is unique, like in all these things.
Yeah, it is. And totally switching gears here, I wanted to, because I don't want to keep you too long, but I wanted to really hop on this militant hippie thing. I want to hear more about this. For those of you might not know, I'm hoping that this brand kind of grows a little bit, and it's exciting. One, because you've grown brands before, so you know exactly what you're doing. But one, where the militant hippie came from, and then two, where you kind of see it going. Where what are you doing with this brand?
Yeah, so for anybody who doesn't no Militant Hippies. We've got the classics. You can find a website and Facebook and all of that kind of good stuff, and Instagram and, all the social media and all that kind of stuff. You just look it up. But, it kind of started, this is a classic entrepreneurial thing where the business side of it has pivoted a few times. But really where it starts is, I love the juxtaposition of the two words, right? And as someone who was in the military and someone who's spent a career in the outdoors, I like sort of the play of those words. And, it's that idea, like, are you really just like, a hippie within the military? Or are you just being militant about being a hippie? Like, what is it? And so I really find it just to be a fun brand that is a lot of tongue in cheek. We try not to go after, everybody my friends that I'm partnered up with in this, we're all veterans, but we try not to make that our thing. It is who we are, but I feel like the veteran thing has been kind of played in this arena.
It is.
And, we're pretty much selling coffee and T-shirts and fun stuff. And so we're not really there, but we're really more about being smart asses and, having a reverent sense of humor and kind of mocking things. If anything, we're more likely to make videos trolling some of the more serious videos. Like, we probably would go after the humor route more often than not. But what happens is, so I have a Park City running company, a running store. Another friend of mine has a business called Park City Coffee Roasters. And, originally I was just like, hey, we should just get some T-shirt printing equipment and we'll make our own shirts and just cut our costs down. And it wasn't really chasing down a business. And so we decided to form this LLC. And I said, well, I got this name that I've always been, had this affinity to that I play around with. And when I'm at venture racing and things, I use it as a team name. So we used it just to form the LLC, and out of fun, made a logo and some stickers, and then, threw it on the bikes and stuff. And we just noticed people really responding to it when you see it. And so that kind of got us thinking. And Rob and Ray, who own Park City Coffee Roasters, they're phenomenal business people here in the greater Park City area. And they've got some great business established, but they don't really have much of an online presence. And so we thought, it would be great. We take your expertise in coffee, and we'll take another mutual friend of ours, Nate Russell, and myself, and we'll work on the brand stuff. And let's pull all this together and see if we can have some fun with this thing and see where the brand grows. And so really the way it's manifested itself is through coffee, and then we're accessories that kind of go around that. But now what's happened is, and this is like where we're still finding our way through, but like we have friends of ours that are physically just down the street, like 100 meters, maybe 200 meters from the coffee roasting facility, is Alpine Distilling. And Alpine makes like beautiful like gins, and they have bourbons and stuff, but they're all sitting in the casks right now. So they've got, these spirits that they're making. And so Rob and Sarah who own that are like, well, why don't we take your coffee beans and we'll store those in our bourbon barrels? And so we go down there like as an experiment. And this is what's the fun part about where we're at right now. It's a lot of just experimenting. So we took our medium roast coffee and we loaded it up into the bourbon barrels. And, for the first test, we were playing around. Like, you can't produce it with alcohol in it, but we goofed around with some different recipes and formulas to see what we liked flavor-wise. And, oh, my God, this is a blend we call Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. And the WTF coffee, when you open that bag, like
you can just smell it.
Yeah, we're just talking about the nose and the smell. And actually, it's a very mild flavor. You're not feeling like you're, pounding shots of bourbon in the morning. But so we're playing around there. But what's really kind of happening, the more organic piece is we're connecting with other small businesses.
Yes.
And that's the key thing. So what we're really doing is we're really just a bunch of Park City people playing around and keeping it tight and making it available by putting it online and just sort of having fun. So I think of Militant Hippies really much more as an incubator or kind of like a place just for us to play and experiment and see where that goes. Now, I think if you thought about what our aspirations are, I don't know. I think we think the brand itself could be fun. We could have a good time with it. And it's going to be more about who we partner with and more about some of these products. Like, so we're actually have another roast of coffee that we've been working on. We've got two different tacks we're taking where we call it hippie juice. And hippie juice is meant to go with CBD oil. And so we've partnered with a manufacturer of CBD oil to provide it with the coffee. So you buy a bag of coffee now, you're just going to get the coffee. But here quickly, you'll be able to purchase CBD oil and the coffee together. And we're looking at ways to crystallize the CBD so that it can be added into the bag of coffee. So when you roast it, it dispenses it that way. But that's another one that's really good. You know, I'm not sure if people have used CBD oils or CBD ointments, but like, you know, for me in this ultra running world out in Colorado, you see everybody at their Floyd's original like creams, like, you know, at all the aid stations now trying to work out the pain and stuff. So, you know, we're once again, we're partnering with the local businesses to do that. And for us, it's really going to, I want to turn this is not just about selling some coffees, but really what are things we can do? What's going to be the cause that we can help out and become a part of?
Yeah.
And that's what we're sort of exploring right now. So we're really in this sort of incubation phase of the business right now.
No, yeah. And that resonates so much with us because of what we kind of did. You know, when we started the podcast, my thing is that we started the podcast, we wanted it to be a podcast, a standalone. Hey, this is the podcast. And the name was the name that we took for it was going to be a vessel for other things. Right. And so, and we did the same thing. We said, okay. And then even now, if you go to our website, you know, our merch is in another place and there's an actual thing like, hey, here's the TKC Chronicles for our blog. And hey, here's the TKC podcast. It's a separate entity. And yeah, we did the same thing. We said, okay, we looked at small companies who, or small to medium companies, we'll say, who we said, hey, who can we partner with that represents us? Because one of my favorite stories I like to tell is like, I got contacted by this laundry detergent thing that was like Sports and Suds or something. And they wanted us to do ads for them. And I was like, I don't even know who you are. Like, I don't even use your detergent. Why, you know? And so when I started doing this, I really thought to myself, the freedom that I love about entrepreneurship, as long as you're not, you know, getting a ton of loan money from banks, is that it's in your hands. It's up to you whether you fail. It's your money. You know, unless you're not borrowing it from anyone. So if you're just financing everything yourself, you're playing with your own fire. So the only person that's going to get burnt is you. And I love it because it's almost like a form of gambling that's not actual gambling. You're actually like doing stuff. It's not a degenerative side to it, I guess. And so for me, I really love the rush of looking at other companies that we're trying to build with and literally telling them and having them sincerely believe me that, hey man, this is where we're going. This is our path. And I mean, we've only been around for 10 months and you can already kind of tell, I mean, how our, you know, curve is going. And I'm like, just believe in what we're doing and just follow us. Just go with us. Let me take you wherever we're going. You take me wherever you're going, and let's just build this together. And there's something genuine about that I really enjoy because it gives such a familiarity to who you're working with because you invest in that person almost emotionally. You know, all these small business owners that I talk to on a daily basis that I work with, that you see sponsor us, that you see us throw out there, I text these guys personally about personal things, man. Like, hey, is your family good? Hey, you know, what are you going through? Hey, you know, how is this virus affecting your business right now? Are you doing okay? And we'll have personal talks about it. And to me, that means so much more than somebody giving me a $50,000 contract and me losing a part of my business that I'll never see again.
Yeah, I think you've hit on a couple of really good points there, and it's that the relationships, you know, and that you build, and those are the rich moments in life that you enjoy. And if you do find success, you get to look back on, and those would be the things you appreciate. You know, I'd say of all those companies I've worked with in the outdoor industry, when I think back to my favorite places to work, it's always about the people. And when companies are successful, it's always the people. It's about the team, and you know, and it's something that we probably all learned fairly early on when we were in the military, but it's about surrounding yourself with good people and just doing good work and trying to put as much of the bullshit off to the side as you can. And, you know, and you also hit on the financing piece. It's interesting because, you know, one of the things that like you kind of naturally want to hear someone say is global domination, we're taking over the world, we're growing so fast.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that was Militant Hippies because, you know, when I had Waterbox, that water bottle company I was describing, it was, you know, an amazing experience and ride. But at one point I realized I had raised $750,000 in equity-based capital. I had like another $500,000 in asset-based lending. You know, I suddenly realized I was spending as much time with the banks and investors as I was doing the thing I was actually good at, which was talking to customers and,
Yep.
designing and selling products for them. And it's all good. I mean, that's all part of that job, but it's a totally different animal than when you're with a bunch of friends, networking with other friends, just experimenting and trying things and, not getting yourself to where you feel beholden to the amount of money you've raised, but rather giving yourself still the freedom to move. The irony is sometimes when you do find success and you get more money, more restrictions come along with that. And there's a few people out there that manage to fly pretty loose while they're making a bunch of money, but usually people's money are like, hammering you about it. So it's a nice space to be in. And I think right now we're really just trying to enjoy this experimental phase that we're in.
Yeah, and I tell my team all the time, we're a small team of like 5-6 guys, and this is where we're at now. The phase that we're in now is obviously a growing phase, but it's the enjoyable phase. We're just busy enough for it to still be fun. But on a trajectory path, we're probably 12 or 24 months away from where it's not going to be fun anymore. and so right now for me, I'm at the fun phase. I'm at the, we're designing things. Like, I mean, our group chat is us throwing designs back and forth. Like, oh, are we doing this? Like, where do we go from here? That's the fun part of it. It's, I don't know. For someone who's never started their own business before, I just had to do this thing the other day where I did a live stream for the university's career they consider me a social media influencer. I don't know if I consider myself that, but sure. So I had to get on there and speak to, kids and asking questions. And that's what I told them. And I said, when you're starting off, man, and if you really have content that you think you're putting out or merchandise or anything that you really think you're putting out, so go ahead and surround the early stages, go ahead and surround yourself with a team that you're going to be able to count on, because it gets harder as it goes. It continually gets harder and harder. And the more money and harder decisions are put into it, the less fun it is. And the more, the more serious you have to take it, obviously. I mean, that, that's given, but it takes, when money is involved, it starts taking the human quality out of it. And you start seeing the primal parts of people, because you start seeing money makes people do weird things, man. And when you don't have it, and when you don't have to worry about it, and nobody's worrying about getting the money, for me, I feel like you see more free flowing ideas, because at that point you're still in the creativity phase, you're still in the incubation phase. Once you start putting money into it, man, people start getting weird.
Yeah, it's funny, because in a way it's a good problem to have, right? You're like, you hope to have that be your problem opposed to like debt, or something along those lines. But, it's funny because like I get approached a lot of times by people that have, I think, so after we sold Waterbox and stuff, I was the vice president of licensing and innovation for Nathan Sports. And so I spent a lot of time, I'd already been spending years in Asia with our water bottle company, and now I'm developing LED light products and, all kinds of just stuff. And so I think because of that, quite often people have a product idea they'll approach me with, like, some business they want to start or something. And one of the questions I always ask them, and it really kind of rings true for anybody, whether their goal is to be a social media influencer, but it's like, you got to just be sure of what it is you want to do within your own business. Because as it grows, suddenly I found myself having to deal with all the banks. So then I had to hire salespeople that could like take over the stuff I was doing. And, I found the natural path in Waterbox that was based on needs. But like a lot of times people might have, say, the product idea person, they just really kind of want to see their product come to life. They don't really want to like grind out a business day in, day out. Yeah. So, like you got to wonder that, or like, say it's social media, like say it's, I don't know, like whether they're going to, TikTok or YouTube, wherever they go, whatever the platform is in their day at that moment. Do you want to be the one editing the videos? Do you want to just be the personality on the front? Do you want to like come up with, you want to be writing? Like, I don't know, whatever it is you want to do, because the bigger these things get, you usually get more people, and then you got to divide up tasks, and you just kind of try to make sure at the end you're doing the stuff you really want to do.
Yeah, it does. It gets harder. I think that we've done a pretty good job of managing, what we want to do. And, the podcast started out as two guys, and, the coronavirus is throwing a thing in. Jeff, he still records with us every now and then. But, I think that around January, February, when we actually started to pick up some finances and started to pick up some sponsorships, he and I both looked at it, and I was kind of like, hey man, this is me. This is what I do. I'm good at this. I understand that. And he's very good at the podcasting part. So for him, I told him, hey, step away from everything else. If he's focusing on taking the MCAT, you got to do what you got to do. And there's always a place for you here if you want to come back. But for him, that was his thing. He had no interest in designing, any type of merchandise, And so for me, I think with business, and I think it comes maturity wise too, you have to be able to understand that. For me, I said, hey dude, like there was no ill will at all. I had no problem with it. I said, you know what, when you can show up to do episodes, you show up, we'll knock them out. It'll be fine. It'll be good. It'll be just like old times. But for him, when we started this out, it was something that he saw as fun to do. And then it slowly started morphing into a business. And the hardest thing that I have for me personally, my own personal downfall is that I have a very hard time explaining people how I see the vision. I see it and I know what I'm going for and I can speak on it. But I think when I talk about it, a lot of people look at me and they're like, dude, this guy is absolutely nuts. Like when I first told my mom I was doing this, she was like, what are you even talking about? And I was like, okay, just wait and see. Like, wait, the copyrights are coming, the LLC's coming, the merchandise coming, just like, wait, it's coming. And I think a lot of people looked at it and they're like, you're going to build a business based off a podcast that you're going to turn into getting sponsorships and some kind of streaming revenue, and you're going to build an apparel company. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And so for me, I always saw it. It was from the day I first started buying audio equipment 2 years ago, I saw it. I knew what I was going to do. But trying to relay that to someone who one, has no interest in it, and two, doesn't really kind of get what you're saying, that's the hardest part for me. And I think that was the biggest thing, is that Jeff and I never really had a falling out or anything like that. It was just for him, it was a podcast. And for me, I kind of saw where this was going. I knew where it was going, and it took off. And that was the hardest part, is being like, man, like, you don't ever want to just say like, oh, I told you so. But at the same time, like I always, for me, I'm not shocked. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Well, and there is a little bit, I mean, it's okay if like some competitiveness comes in, right, or that I'm going to show them kind of thing comes in, because, when someone's an entrepreneur, as and you're starting your own business, essentially you're operating without a safety net, right? Like, if you work for a company, we're at will countries, you could be let go, right? But generally speaking, where your paycheck's coming from, or if depending on what your job is and how it's going, but, you may know where your paycheck's coming and had a medical insurance and things like that. When you take the entrepreneurial route, like, you don't have a safety net under you. It's like, you're only going to make money if you generate income. And as you grow, you then also find yourself paying people. And then, like, I remember a good pressure, not a good, but I mean, a point of pressure for me was with Waterbox, when I realized that, you have employees, but it's their families. You're like, oh man, not only if I screw this up, am I taking myself out, I'm going to take out these people, but now I'm taking their families out. Like, you can get, there's plenty of pressure to be had there, but that's the thing. Like, I feel like with entrepreneurs in general, whether someone's starting, a big tech startup or opening up their own hot dog stand, there's empathy across all of it, because you understand what that other person's going through. And they're in that spot you're at, where you're talking about, where like, they've got the vision, they're driving towards that vision. At some point, people will catch on and understand what's going on. But for quite a long period of time, they're flying solo.
No, they are. I was lucky enough to have two latch on to me really quick. And my thing is that you're 100% correct. The one thing that I don't think people think about when they think about small businesses is how much little questions of planning go into, of how much of self-taught stuff. Opening your own business account, having to do the taxes on that business. And then, like, I get questions all the time where I'm just like, oh, wait, what is happening right now? One of my guys, man, needs a new laptop for a lot of the stuff we're doing. Right. And I wake up one day and I get a question like, hey, if I get a new laptop, can we write that off on the taxes? And I'm like, oh, Jesus, like it's just stuff that you don't think about. But realistically, they're good questions. And I was like, well, you know what? Let me look into it. Then you look at this tax exempt thing like, oh yeah, as long as you're only using the laptop for the business, we can 100% write it off, but I got to make sure that you're only using it for the business.
Yep.
And so
that's the thing. You bounce. So there's too much. Like if you go from zero, if you just have the idea,
right.
And if you sat there on a piece of paper and wrote out everything you have to do, like it'd just be too much. You're like, it's definitely like a one day at a time, one problem at a time. You just start establishing the business and getting it, going. And then before you know it, like it's an interesting thing. Like there's so many things you end up becoming the person who actually does that you didn't even know about that you're going to have to do before you start. And that's just part of it. But that's part of the great part of the experience. It is. When you do it, and hopefully it works for people. But even if their business doesn't work out, that experience, the life lessons that'll come out of that, the confidence, their ability to look at the root cause of problems and try to problem solve and adapt and pivot, like. That's pretty good skill set. I mean, that's a pretty good training that comes out of the whole thing.
Yeah, there's the Theodore Roosevelt Man in the Arena speech, and at the end of it, that's what he, for him, in the same way I think about it too, is that I would rather fail trying than to not try at all, and for me that really resonated because I don't know if I've told the story in the podcast or not, but I think I may have. But my mom is actually like my number one supporter of this podcast, which is great. She buys all my stuff. It's amazing. She bought all Frontier Coffee stuff too. So, getting it out there, doing the mom thing. And but I remember we were at this Italian restaurant in my hometown eating, and she had said something, and my mom and I have always had this very contentious relationship where we I feel like we challenge each other a lot. And I feel like we're very good at exposing each other's flaws and calling out each other. It's very, we have a very motherly, child relationship, but we also have a very good friendship as well. And I remember she said something along the lines basically of, you have all these ideas and you're never really following through with them. And I was like, well, okay, what are you talking about? Name one. And she goes, well, what about this podcast you've been talking about for the last year? Did I shit you not? I went home and within 6 weeks had Logos LLC, all brand new equipment. And I was like, this is it. It's over. Like I'll never be called out again. Like, it pained me so much. And so I mess with my mom now that she was really the ignition for it. In a negative way, but that turned into a positive. She was trying to be positive, and I took it so negatively that I was like, nope, that's it. That's game over. It's time to get nasty. And that's what I did.
Yeah. Hunger is good.
Yes.
A little fighting is a good thing when you're trying to deal with a bunch of stuff and you're starting a business or probably anything in life.
Yeah, it is.
That hunger is good.
Canice, man, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. I didn't even mean to keep you this long. And I know we said this the first time we got on the phone together. I feel like we could talk for hours. So I just want to say thank you so much, man, because the big thing too is that, not only highlighting veteran small businesses is what we're big with, and mental health. A lot of the conversations that I like to have are conversations like this that people can actually take real things from. A lot of podcasts out here, I think do a really good job with a lot of the self-help and a lot of the stories and stuff. But a lot of them I don't feel like are real actual conversations. And this is like an actual conversation that we would have if we weren't even on the podcast. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity to come on. And, I guess if anybody's listening and has any questions for me, hit me up on the social media stuff. Just find me at Militant Hippies and I'll answer any questions or do anything I can to help out.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll be throwing up some pictures of you and tagging it up and everything like that. And, I'm looking forward to getting out to Park City, seeing everything and, making Nate come out there and meet me. So.
Yeah, well, when you get out here, we'll hook up for sure, and we'll get Nate out here, and we'll get all of us running around. So we've got some good areas to play in around here. So
yeah, definitely.
Maybe we just all go rucking. That could be good.
Yeah, hey, no, I'll tell you, if we ruck, I'll run. I'll do a run with you guys, and then you can ruck. I know Nate's a little runner too, so
Yeah, he's quite the athlete, Nate. So we got to watch out for him. He's the one who will get us in trouble.
He's getting old though.
yeah, we should just totally so old and slow right now.
I tell you, he's getting his little. He put up whatever it was the other day with his COVID-19 body. He's getting the dad bod going. He's getting old. Don't worry about it. The entrepreneurship's really taking him over.
You got to find an old post you put up. I can't remember if it was like a year or so ago, but it was like him and Pooh Bear next to each other.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a hilarious one. like there goes the pro triathlete, with the Pooh Bear body.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man. Hey, thank you so much. I won't keep you. Everybody out there, look up Militant Hippies. The packaging on it's actually really cool. You're going to want to buy it. So at the same time you're doing that, just for sponsorship purposes, make sure you buy Frontier Coffee too. And even though actually Nate has a small piece of Militant Hippies, so go ahead and buy that as well. We're all helping each other. Yeah, we're all helping each other out here.
He's doubling down. Like he's going to win no matter what. So yeah, he's happy.
Right on. Hey, all right, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hope you check this episode out. Probably drop it in the next, week or two. And cheers, everybody. Thank you.
This episode is fueled by Frontier Coffee. Family owned, family operated. Fresh roasted coffee inspired by America's Wild West legends. Find Frontier on Facebook, Instagram, and online at frontiercoffee.com. Wake up and be legendary.